My name is Harold Mitchell, and I'm 72 years old. 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I was wrong. Real betrayal comes from the people who smile at you over Sunday dinner while planning to throw you away like yesterday's newspaper. My daughter-in-law thought she was so clever when she told me, "Harold, we're putting you in Sunset Manor. You've had a good life." What Jessica didn't know was that my old iPhone was sitting right there on the kitchen counter, recording every single word that came out of her mouth. Now, before you judge me for recording private conversations, let me tell you something. When you get to be my age, and your hearing isn't what it used to be, and people start talking to you like you're already half dead, you learn to protect yourself. I started using that voice memo app just to remember what my doctor told me during appointments. But that Thursday morning, that little red recording button became the most powerful weapon I never knew I had. See, Jessica Mitchell isn't just any daughter-in-law. She's the woman who married my son Brandon 8 years ago, the woman I welcomed into our family with open arms when my late wife Margaret was still alive. Margaret used to say, "Harold, that girl's got ambition written all over her face." My beautiful wife was right about everything, including Jessica's ambition. What Margaret didn't live to see was what Jessica was willing to do with that ambition. Brandon is my only child, my 45-year-old son who looks just like I did at his age. Same stubborn jawline, same blue eyes that Margaret fell in love with. He's a good man, works hard selling insurance, never missed a Father's Day call in his life. But Brandon's got one weakness, and her name is Jessica. That woman could convince him the sky was purple if she batted her eyelashes the right way. Then there's my granddaughter, Emma. She's 16 now, smart as a whip, with her grandmother's gentle heart. That girl is the light of my life, the reason I kept going after Margaret passed 3 years ago. Emma never looked at me like I was a burden, never acted like my stories were boring, never rolled her eyes when I needed help opening those impossible prescription bottles. But Jessica's a different story entirely. 38 years old, blonde hair always perfectly styled, real estate license hanging on the wall like a Medal of Honor. She's the type of woman who measures success by square footage and judges worth by bank statements. When I first met her, she seemed impressed that I'd built half the houses in our neighborhood with these two hands. But that was before she realized construction workers retire with pensions, not trust funds. Here's what you need to understand about my situation. After Margaret died, I was lost, completely lost. Brandon and Jessica invited me to live with them after I had a minor heart episode 6 months ago. "Dad, we want you close," Brandon said. "It'll be great for Emma to have Grandpa around," Jessica added with that smile that never quite reached her eyes. So I sold my house. The house where Margaret and I raised Brandon, where we celebrated 47 Christmases, where she took her last breath holding my hand. I sold it and gave Brandon $80,000 to help pay off their mortgage. "Think of it as an investment in our family's future," Jessica said when she suggested it. I thought I was moving in with people who loved me. I thought I was contributing to a home where I'd be valued, where my presence mattered. I thought wrong. That recording I made changed everything. By the next day, I had called my lawyer. By the weekend, Jessica was gone, bags packed, marriage over. But here's the part that keeps me awake at night. My son Brandon has never looked at me the same way again. You see, when you expose someone's true character, you don't just destroy them. You destroy everyone who believed in them, everyone who loved them, everyone who trusted them. Brandon didn't just lose his wife that weekend. He lost his faith in the woman he'd chosen, his confidence in his own judgment, and his respect for the father who shattered his world to save his own dignity. So buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about standing up to a manipulative daughter-in-law. It's about the price of truth, the cost of justice, and what happens when doing the right thing feels absolutely wrong. Let me paint you a picture of what life was like before everything went to hell. 6 months ago, when I first walked through Brandon and Jessica's front door with my 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope, I actually believed this was going to work. Their house sits in Meadowbrook Estates, one of those newer subdivisions where every lawn looks like a golf course and every driveway has at least 2 cars that cost more than I made in a year. It's a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial that I helped them afford, though Jessica never mentioned that part when she gave tours to her real estate friends. Brandon had set up the guest room for me on the first floor. He'd even installed grab bars in the attached bathroom without me asking. "Dad, I want you to feel at home here," he said, and I could see Margaret's kindness in his eyes. That first night, Emma knocked on my door with a plate of chocolate chip cookies she'd baked. "Welcome home, Grandpa," she said, and for a moment, I thought maybe this broken old man might actually have a place in this perfect house. The first month was like a honeymoon period. Jessica would ask about my day, include me in dinner conversations, even laugh at my old construction stories. "Harold built half this neighborhood," she'd tell visitors, and I felt proud, useful, like I still mattered. I helped Emma with her algebra homework, taught her to change the oil in her car, shared stories about her grandmother that made her eyes light up. Brandon and I fell back into our old rhythm. We'd watch Sunday football together, and he'd ask my advice about work problems, house repairs, even marriage stuff. "Dad, how did you and Mom make it look so easy?" he asked one evening, and I told him the secret was simple. "Your mother and I were a team. We never forgot we were on the same side. I should have seen the warning signs earlier, but when you're lonely and grateful, you ignore things you shouldn't." Like how Jessica's smile got tighter when my friend Carl started dropping by for coffee on Tuesday mornings. "Harold, maybe you could meet your friends somewhere else," she suggested. "The house gets so loud with all that laughing." Or how she'd make comments about my routines. "I've been taking my medications at 8 in the morning for 3 years, same time every day like the doctor ordered." "Do you have to rattle those pill bottles so early?" Jessica would ask, standing in the kitchen in her silk robe, looking at me like I was personally responsible for ruining her morning. The television volume became another issue. My hearing isn't what it used to be, and I need the volume up to catch the dialogue. "Harold, the neighbors are going to complain," Jessica said one evening, snatching the remote and turning it down so low I couldn't hear a word. Brandon just sat there, torn between his wife and his father, saying nothing. But the real shift happened when I offered to help with Emma's college tuition. My granddaughter had gotten accepted to State University with partial academic scholarships, but they still needed about $15,000 for her first year. I was at the dinner table when Emma showed us her acceptance letter, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Congratulations, sweetheart," I said, reaching across to squeeze her hand. "Grandpa's going to help with that tuition. I've got money set aside for exactly this kind of thing." The temperature in that room dropped 20 degrees. Jessica's fork stopped halfway to her mouth, and she gave Brandon a look I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, almost angry. "That's very generous, Harold," she said in a voice that could freeze water. "But we can't keep depending on charity." Charity. She called my love for my granddaughter Charity. That night, I heard them arguing in their bedroom. The walls in these new houses are thin, and voices carry. "I didn't sign up to be a caregiver, Brandon. He's not even that sick. He's just old and needy, and now he thinks he can throw money around like he's still the head of this household." "Jessica, he's my father. He sold his house to help us." "Exactly. He got his money's worth. We gave him a place to live. We don't owe him anything else." That's when I realized I wasn't living with family. I was living with strangers who had taken my money and were now counting the days until they could cash in their investment and be done with me. The honeymoon was over, and the real Jessica Mitchell was about to show her face. After that college tuition dinner, everything changed. Jessica stopped pretending to like me, and honestly, it was almost a relief. At least now I knew where I stood. The next morning, I was sitting in the kitchen having my coffee and oatmeal when Jessica walked in, wearing her power suit and that fake smile she reserved for difficult clients. "Harold, we need to talk about boundaries," she said, not even bothering with good morning. "What kind of boundaries?" I asked. "Financial boundaries. You can't just offer to pay for things without discussing it with us first. Emma's our daughter, and her education is our responsibility." I set down my coffee cup slowly. "Jessica, I'm not trying to overstep. I'm trying to help my granddaughter." "Your help comes with strings attached, Harold. Every dollar you spend in this house makes you think you have a say in how we run our lives." That stung because there was a grain of truth in it. When you contribute $80,000 to someone's mortgage, you do feel like you have some investment in the household decisions. But I wasn't trying to control anyone. I was trying to be useful. Over the next few weeks, Jessica's campaign to make me feel unwelcome went into overdrive. She started talking to me like I was a child who couldn't understand basic concepts. "Harold, remember to wipe down the bathroom sink after you use it. Harold, your friend Carl tracked mud through my clean house. Harold, could you please not microwave fish? The smell lingers." But the worst part was watching Brandon get caught in the middle. My son is a good man, but he's never been good at confrontation. When Jessica complained about me, he'd nod along to keep the peace. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd say things like, "Dad, just try to be more considerate. Jessica's stressed about work." The breaking point came 3 weeks after the tuition incident. Emma had stayed late at school for drama club practice, Brandon was at a client dinner, and I was alone with Jessica for the first time in days. I was reading in the living room when she walked in with her laptop and phone, clearly agitated about something. She started making calls, and I couldn't help but overhear because she wasn't exactly trying to be quiet. The first call was to her mother. "Mom, I can't take this anymore. He's everywhere. I can't even relax in my own house." Then she called someone named Linda. "I know you work in elder care. I need information about assisted living facilities. No, not for a client, for family." My blood ran cold. I pretended to keep reading, but every word hit me like a physical blow. The third call was the one that changed everything. Jessica dialed a number and said, "Hi, this is Jessica Mitchell. I called yesterday about placement options for elderly residents. Yes, I'm still interested in scheduling a tour." I felt sick. Actually, physically sick. This woman, who was living in a house that I'd helped pay for, who had accepted my money with hugs and thank yous, was shopping for a place to dump me like an unwanted piece of furniture. But the worst call was the fourth one. She called Brandon at his dinner meeting. "Brandon, we need to make a decision about your father. I've been doing research, and Sunset Manor has an opening next month. The timing is perfect." I couldn't hear Brandon's side of the conversation, but I could fill in the blanks from Jessica's responses. "No, we've tried to make it work, but it's not fair to Emma. She needs her own space, and frankly, so do we. Yes, I know he helped with the mortgage, but that doesn't mean we owe him a lifetime of caregiving. Brandon, he's not getting any younger. This is only going to get harder." When she hung up, I saw her make notes on a pad. "Tour Sunset Manor Friday. Talk to financial advisor about Harold's accounts. Research power of attorney requirements." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Margaret, about how she'd always warned me to pay attention when people showed you their true colors. "Harold," she used to say, "when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time." Jessica had been telling me who she was for weeks. I just hadn't wanted to listen. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. If Jessica thought she could plan my future behind my back, she was about to learn that this old construction worker still had some fight left in him. I started carrying my phone everywhere, and I learned how to use that voice memo app like my life depended on it. Because, as it turned out, it did. The next few days, I became a different person. Not angry, not vengeful, just careful. When you've spent 40 years in construction, you learn that the best way to handle a dangerous situation is to gather information first, then make your move when you have all the facts. I started paying attention to Jessica's patterns. She made her important phone calls between 9 and 10 in the morning, after Brandon left for work and Emma caught the school bus. She always used the kitchen for her calls because it had the best cell reception, and she always assumed I was too old, too deaf, or too naive to understand what she was really doing. She was wrong on all 3 counts. I spent Tuesday morning learning everything I could about my iPhone's voice memo app. Emma had helped me set it up months ago to record reminders for myself, but I'd never really used it properly. Now, I practiced starting recordings quickly, figuring out where the microphone picked up sound best, and most importantly, how to make it look like I was just checking my messages or the weather. Wednesday morning was my dress rehearsal. Jessica was in the kitchen making her coffee when I shuffled in with my phone, mumbling about needing to record a reminder about my doctor's appointment. I placed the phone on the counter near the fruit bowl, tapped the voice memo button, and said loud enough for her to hear, "Harold, remember to ask Dr. Peterson about the new blood pressure medication on Friday." Jessica barely glanced at me. To her, I was just a confused old man talking to himself. Perfect. But Thursday morning was when everything aligned like the stars. Brandon had an early client meeting in downtown, something about a big commercial policy that could make his quarter. He was out the door by 7:30, coffee in hand, tie slightly crooked the way it always was when he was nervous about a big sale. Emma had drama club practice before school, some kind of dress rehearsal for their spring play. She grabbed a granola bar and her backpack, kissed my cheek, and said, "Break a leg at your doctor's appointment today, Grandpa. I know it's not until next week, but I wanted to say it early." That kid's heart was pure gold, and she had no idea her mother was planning to rip her grandfather right out of her life. By 8:15, it was just Jessica and me in that big house. I was making my usual breakfast, 2 pieces of wheat toast, scrambled eggs, and coffee black, when she walked in wearing her navy business suit and carrying a folder that looked suspiciously official. My hands were steady as I placed my phone on the counter next to the toaster. I opened the voice memo app, positioned it so the microphone faced toward the kitchen table where Jessica always sat for serious conversations, and pressed record. "Harold, I need to record a reminder about my doctor's appointment," I said out loud, just like I'd practiced. "Dr. Peterson, Friday at 2 o'clock. Ask about blood pressure medication adjustment." Jessica looked up from her folder briefly, then went back to whatever paperwork she was organizing. I could see the Sunset Manor brochure sticking out from between other documents. My stomach clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. "We need to talk," she said, not looking up from her papers. "Of course. What about—" That's when she looked directly at me with those cold blue eyes, and I knew this was it. This was the moment she'd been building toward for weeks. She had her paperwork ready, her arguments prepared, probably even had her speech rehearsed. What Jessica didn't know was that I'd been preparing too. While she'd been planning my exile, I'd been researching elder law attorneys. While she'd been calculating how to get rid of me, I'd been photocopying every financial document related to my $80,000 contribution to their mortgage. While she'd been assuming I was just a helpless old man, I'd been remembering that I'd successfully run construction crews, managed complex projects, and negotiated contracts for 4 decades. I might be older now, but I wasn't stupid, and I sure as hell wasn't helpless. Jessica Mitchell was about to find out that underestimating Harold Mitchell was the biggest mistake of her life. The red recording light was blinking steadily on my phone, and I was ready for whatever came next. "Harold, we need to talk," Jessica said, settling into her chair like she was about to conduct a business meeting. "Brandon and I have made a decision." I kept buttering my toast, steady as could be. "What kind of decision?" "We're putting you in Sunset Manor. It's a beautiful facility, really top-notch care. And honestly, Harold, you've had a good life. It's time for us to focus on our family's future." Those words hit me like a physical slap, but I kept my voice calm. When did you and Brandon discuss this? We've been talking about it for weeks. The truth is, this arrangement isn't working for anyone. You need more care than we can provide, and we need our space back. I took a sip of coffee, buying time while that little red recording light kept blinking. I'm curious, Jessica. What kind of care do you think I need? I take my own medications, I shower myself, I cook my own breakfast. She waved her hand dismissively. Harold, you're 72 years old. Things are only going to get worse. Brandon agrees that it's better to make this transition now, while you're still relatively healthy, rather than wait for a crisis. Brandon agrees? I repeated. When exactly did Brandon agree to this? Last night, after you went to bed, we had a long conversation about what's best for everyone, including you. That was lie number one. I'd heard Brandon come home from his dinner meeting, and they'd barely spoken before going to bed. And you think Sunset Manor is what's best for me? Jessica opened her folder and pulled out the brochure I'd seen her with earlier. Look at these amenities, Harold. They have activities, group meals, medical staff on site 24/7. You'll make friends with people your own age instead of sitting around here all day. What about the money I contributed to your mortgage? Her expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. What about it? Well, I gave you $80,000 to help pay off this house. If I'm moving to Sunset Manor, what happens to that investment? Harold, that money was a gift. You can't take back a gift. A gift? I said. Jessica, I have the paperwork from when we refinanced. That money went directly toward paying down your principal balance. I have the bank documents. She was getting flustered now, her real personality starting to show. Look, Harold, the bottom line is this. Your Social Security barely covers your food and medication. You're costing us money every month, and frankly, Brandon and I never signed up to be caregivers. But you did sign up to take my $80,000. That was different. That was you wanting to help family. And now that you've got the money, the family part is over? Jessica's mask finally slipped completely. Harold, let's be honest here. You sold your house because you couldn't take care of yourself anymore. We gave you a place to live. We included you in our family dinners. We've been patient with your old man routines and your boring stories and your friends tracking mud through my house. But this was always supposed to be temporary. Temporary? You never mentioned temporary when you were depositing my check. Don't be difficult about this. Sunset Manor is a nice place. They'll take good care of you, and Emma can visit on weekends. What about what Emma wants? Did anyone ask her opinion about sending Grandpa away? Emma's 16 years old, Harold. She doesn't get a vote in adult decisions. Besides, she'll be going to college soon anyway. This house will be empty nest, and Brandon and I need to focus on our marriage and our future. Your future that's built on the foundation of my $80,000. Jessica stood up abruptly, clearly done with the conversation. The decision is made, Harold. I've already put down a deposit at Sunset Manor. They have an opening next month, and you're taking it. Start thinking about what you want to pack. I looked at her standing there in her perfect suit with her perfect hair and her perfectly cold heart, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Jessica, I said quietly, I think you should know something. What? I picked up my phone from the counter and stopped the recording. 22 minutes and 37 seconds of pure gold. I recorded every word you just said. The color drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug. You wouldn't dare. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Try me. The look on Jessica's face when I revealed that recording was worth every painful moment that followed. Pure shock, then fear, then rage. She tried to grab my phone, but I was already backing toward the living room. You can't use that, she said, her voice shaking. That's illegal. You can't record someone without permission. Actually, Jessica, I can. This is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, it's perfectly legal. I looked it up. That afternoon, while Jessica frantically called Brandon and probably her lawyer, I called attorney Sarah Chen. She specialized in elder law and family disputes, and when I played her that recording over the phone, she went quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Mitchell," she finally said, "how soon can you come to my office?" By Wednesday, legal papers were served. Jessica's coffee cup was halfway to her lips when the doorbell rang. I watched from the kitchen window as she signed for the certified mail, her hands trembling as she read the lawsuit papers. The legal case was surprisingly straightforward. The recording proved several things: financial elder abuse, breach of oral contract regarding my housing arrangement, and attempted coercion of an elderly person. My $80,000 contribution came with an implied agreement of care and housing, and Jessica's own words proved they had taken my money while planning to institutionalize me. The explosion came 30 minutes later. Jessica's voice carried through the entire house as she called Brandon at work. "You need to come home right now. Your father is suing us. He recorded our private conversation and now he has lawyers involved." I sat at that same kitchen table, drinking coffee and listening to her panic. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Brandon came home looking like someone had died. "Dad, what the hell is going on?" I showed him the lawsuit papers and played him the recording. Watching my son's face as he heard his wife's true feelings about me was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. The disappointment, the betrayal, the realization that the woman he'd married was not who he thought she was. "Jessica, how could you say these things?" he asked her. "Brandon, your father tricked me. He recorded me without telling me. You were planning to put him in a nursing home without telling me." That fight lasted 3 hours. I heard most of it from my room, where I sat reading and trying to pretend my heart wasn't breaking for my son. By Friday, Jessica had made her choice. I was loading the dishwasher when she walked into the kitchen with 2 suitcases. "I'm not living with your father and his lawyers," she told Brandon. "If you choose him over me, that's your decision. But I'm done." Emma, bless her heart, was devastated. "Grandpa, did you really make Mom move out?" How do you explain to a 16-year-old that sometimes protecting yourself means watching other people's worlds fall apart? "Sweetheart, I just stood up for myself. Your mom made her own choices." Jessica initially took Emma with her to her mother's house across town, but Emma's smart. Within 2 weeks, she figured out the truth. She started spending weekends with Brandon and me and eventually convinced her mother to let her move back home full-time. But the real aftermath wasn't Jessica leaving. It was what happened to my relationship with Brandon. 6 months later, we're living in the same house, but we're strangers. Brandon looks at me like I'm someone who destroyed his marriage, which I guess I did. He's polite, cordial even, but the warmth is gone. The easy conversations about work and life and memories of his mother have dried up. "Dad," he said one evening, "I understand why you did what you did. I even agree that Jessica was wrong, but I can't forgive you for not coming to me first. Brandon, I tried to talk to you. You always took her side. You could have tried harder." Maybe he's right. Maybe I could have found another way to protect myself without using that recording to blow up his marriage. But I think about what would have happened if I hadn't stood up for myself. I'd be sitting in Sunset Manor right now, wondering how I let someone take advantage of my love for my family. The truth is, I got my dignity back, but I lost my son's respect. Emma still loves me, still calls me every day from her dorm room at college. She's studying law now, says I inspired her to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. But Brandon? Brandon speaks to me like I'm a tenant he inherited, not the father who raised him. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything that matters. I'd do it again, but I'd give anything to have my son back. That's my story. The recording that saved my dignity but cost me my family. Looking back, I don't know if there was a perfect solution. Maybe there never is when people show you their true colors and those colors are uglier than you wanted to believe. I share this with you not because I'm proud of how it ended, but because I want other people in my situation to know they're not powerless. When someone tries to take advantage of your age, your kindness, or your love for family, you have options. You have rights. And sometimes you have to choose between being a victim and being alone. If you're facing something similar, document everything. Know your state's recording laws. Find an elder law attorney who will listen to your story. And remember that protecting yourself isn't selfish, even when other people make you feel like it is. What do you think? Did I do the right thing? Or should I have found another way? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been in a situation where standing up for yourself cost you relationships? I'd love to hear your stories. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. It helps more people find these stories, and maybe someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone in facing family betrayal. Share this video with anyone who might benefit from Harold's story. Sometimes we all need a reminder that our dignity is worth fighting for, even when the cost is higher than we expected. And if you want to hear more real stories about family drama, justice served, and the complicated choices we make when the people we love let us down, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I've got plenty more stories where this one came from. Thanks for listening to my story. Until next time, remember, your worth isn't determined by how other people treat you. It's determined by how you choose to treat yourself.